Now, I know that there's always differences between show and books. I understand that. But the show did get me interested in figuring out what happens next after the first season, but also as well as got me interested in also reading more about this world and like getting some more answers to my questions. I know shows and books are usually very different, but actually after reading the first book, the show is actually very book accurate. There are some things that they do not include from the first book, and there are some stuff that they change just a bit, which I can understand because there are some things that I felt were better done in the show once I watched it a second time after reading the first book, and it was a lot better. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's just get to the series review. Okay, so the Shadow and Bone Trilogy, basically it's in the name, is a series of 3 books. So, yeah. I bought all 3 after watching the show because I really fell in love with the world and everything, and the books made it even better. I fell in love with this world so much. I gave each book, I think I gave them like a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads because that's how great they were. Every time I picked it up, it was hard to put down. Like, the story was just so interesting and the characters were so great. I don't know why people said that they found in the books that the main character, Alina, is very, like, kind of annoying. I don't see that, but everyone has their own opinions and their own little complaints and stuff about different things, but for me it was done really well. The books are in the main character, the protagonist, Alina's perspective. They're only in her perspective, but in the TV show we get a little bit more of other people's perspectives, and some of the characters in the show aren't even in these books. They're in other books in this Grishaverse, I guess you can call it. So yeah, there are other books which I might pick up at some point, because after reading all of these, I just wanted to read more. I have never had a fantasy series so good that once the book was done, and it ended beautifully, there was nothing I hated about the ending or anything. I just wanted more. I was like, I'm not done with this world yet. It can't be over. This is too good. So I was really surprised. I am like totally not fatigued yet from this stuff. I can watch the show a million times, and I think I might read the books again at some point. But yeah, they're really, really good. I just love these books so much. The first book, as I said, is very much like the show, so it was a bit like tedious to read this when I'd seen the show already, but as I said, there were little changes from the show and the book. But it wasn't that big of a deal, so it didn't bother me that much. So I really did like this first one. I just really wanted to get to the second and the third because I kind of already knew the story of what was in this one. So it was kind of a read that I was like, please, can I get this over with already? I know this stuff already. But it's still a really good book, and I like the little changes and stuff that I saw in the book from the show. I thought it gave me a bit more content, which is always great when you love something and you want some more content that you didn't get, let's say. It's really, really fun. So yeah, if you guys have watched the show, I guess I would recommend this book still to you, but I'm just saying be prepared that it's going to be very close to the show, so it might get boring if you don't want to read the same thing you just watched, basically. But it felt like I had an obligation for me to read it, because I felt like I needed to read all of them for me to be like a true fan and to be in this universe. I was like, I have to read this one. So I did, and I enjoyed it. But if you have a chance to read the books before watching the show, I think you will enjoy this first book much more. So that's just my suggestion for the first book, because that's the only thing I was worried about with this book, was how I would feel reading it after seeing the show, because the first season was based on this first book. So yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about in terms of this first book is the characters and the plot and stuff. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I am going to say what I like about it. So I love each and every character. Even though this is from Alina's point of view, it's still, I loved every single character. They all had such depth, and they were so interesting and fun. I loved every character. Like, there was no character I didn't like or felt was unnecessary. All the characters felt like they deserved to be there, and it was just such a fun experience. The plot was really good. I liked that it began slow, but not too slow. And it got to a lot of interesting stuff quickly, but not too quickly either. The pacing was really good in this one. I really liked the pacing in here. The other two books, it was good too, but I think the first one really did a good job at the pacing, better than the other two. So yeah, I think you guys should definitely read this. I think it's definitely worth your time. The whole series is really great. So yeah, that's my opinion on the first book, though. The second book, Siege and Storm, it's a bit longer. The first book's actually the shortest one. The second book, I was so excited to read this because I'm like, finally content I have not seen. So this was really fun to read. I was super excited. We got introduced to some great new characters, which I was so happy to see. I loved these characters. Again, all the characters in this world that the author created are amazing. I love them. They're fun to be with. Some of them are really funny, and some are really like not very nice, but they're still like really interesting. And the plot in this one moved kind of quickly in the beginning. We start in a small place. I'm not going to say where, but then suddenly everything escalates quickly, and you're like, wait a minute, this is a bit fast. I mean, didn't we just do this? How the hell is this already happening? So it was a bit quick in the beginning, and then through the middle it was slow a bit. But it wasn't the type of slow where it was agonizing and you were just like so bored you didn't want to read. That's not it at all. It was just the pacing in here was a bit all over the place, I think, and that's what made it a bit strange. But the story was still really great. I still loved everything I read. It was still really interesting. It was still like teaching us new things about the world, even though, like, you know, the first book usually establishes the world and stuff. We still get some more great background in this book, and I find that that's really interesting. And there's a link between Alina and basically the bad guy of the story, the Darkling, and it's like really like expanded upon more in this book. I really liked this book, but I did also feel that towards the end, things didn't end badly. They were just a bit... I was sad towards the end, but basically the whole middle of this book is basically planning for a battle that's coming, and then when the battle comes, it's like the good guys are basically losing, and it's just really hard to watch because of all the effort that we've seen them go through in this book to get ahead and to be able to stop the villain. It was really heartbreaking to see that their whole plan fell apart towards the end, but in the end everything ended okay, and it was fine. Yeah, that's all I have to say for this book. for right now, but I really did love it, and I felt like it was really fun. Then the last book, Ruin and Rising, this one was really good too. It was really good. We got so many huge revelations in this book though. Oh my god, guys, it is so great. I know that usually you shouldn't like leave like the huge revelations like maybe for like the last book, like maybe do it in the second book or something. But for me, it was really fun. Even though we didn't get to enjoy it as much if it had been revealed in the second book, I still really enjoyed it. I felt like it was a really good surprise, and you were like, what? Whoa, I knew this was this. I thought that maybe this was this, but I had no idea that this was gonna be this. And it was such a big revelation. It was so interesting, and it just made this book, like, I think my favorite almost. Anyway, in this story, we don't get any new characters, really. We get a few, but not as many as we got, like, bombarded with in the last book. So, it was, like, really interesting, too, to see more of the author's original characters, because they were still really, like, themselves, and it was really fun to see more characters in this universe. And I felt that the pacing in this one was a bit better than the second book. I have to definitely say that. The first book did it perfectly. The pacing was really good. But I think that the third book did better pacing than like the second one. Because we go and we start slow, but not too slow in the beginning. Then the middle is really good too. It feels like a middle. And then the end really feels like the end. So basically the first and third book, the pacing is really good. It makes sense. Everything feels good. It's only the second book I felt was a bit all over the place. But when I was reading, I actually liked that the beginning moved kind of quick. But also it's like, you don't expect that from a book usually. And it felt a bit quick. It felt like a bit too quick in the second book. But this book ended on a positive note. I was satisfied. I was so happy. All of the hardship that the main protagonist, Alina, goes through in this whole series is all worth it in the end, and she finally gets to be happy, which is really important to me in a protagonist. I really love to see them, after all that they've gone through, they finally get to be happy. Because it's so sad when things don't end happily. I mean, I guess life doesn't always end happily, but we read books because we want to escape real life. We don't want to be in the real world. So yeah, that was my series review on the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I absolutely loved this series. I loved the TV show. I love this author, and I love the world that she's created. She is amazing. I love her for creating this and giving this to us in our lives, because this was my favorite series I think I own, and I've read so many series and loved so many books, and I was like, I think this is my new favorite series. So I definitely think it's worth your time if you're a fantasy lover, whatnot. These were a really fun read. I'm definitely going to pick up some of her other books that take place in this universe. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this book review. If you did, please let me know. It's good to know what you guys like and what you don't like. So, yep, I'm really happy with this read. It was definitely worth my month and a half of reading. So, see you guys in the next video. Bye.